Smartbeauties. It was requested of me to do a history of makeup video. I have a feeling that I might have to do this in 2 parts because there is a lot of information. A lot that I was able to find out. But basically, let's just dive on into it. I have my notes, which I'm going to attempt to read, and there is several pages, front and back. A lot of information. So to keep this from being too long, I may have to do this in 2 parts. We'll see. Women and men have been wearing makeup for centuries, although styles have changed and so forth. The earliest record, some of this I wasn't very clear in writing, so may need the glasses from time to time. The earliest record is the first dynasty of Egypt, which was around 3100 to 2907 BC. Tombs have revealed ungent jars, which, if I'm saying it correctly, ungent was a substance used extensively by men and women to keep their skin hydrated and avoid wrinkles because of the dry air. Egyptian women decorated their eyes by applying not what we typically imagine an Egyptian look, but basically they took a dark green and kohl and did under the eye, and then did and blackening their lashes. That seems to have always been a thing. They want to see the eyelashes. Let them fly in their glory. Sorry. Still had some makeup on my hand from when I did my makeup, and it was bugging me. They blackened the lashes, and the upper lid with what is known as kohl, which was made from, pardon me, antimony, which was a metallic substance, or soot. It is believed that Jews adopted their use of makeup from Egyptians. References to painting their faces appear in the New Testament. Roman philosopher Plautus, who was from 254 to 184 BC, wrote, "A woman without paint is like food without salt," showing that a lot of men prefer us to get all did up. Um, Romans used makeup by the middle of the 1st century AD, using kohl for darkening the eyelashes and eyelids, and chalk to whiten their complexions, and rouge on the cheeks. Women wore white lead or chalk on their faces in the Greco-Roman times. Okay, so you can imagine just how unhealthy and how some of these women just up and died young. Persian women used henna dyes to stain their hair and their faces. And during the Middle Ages, pale skin was a sign of wealth. 6th century women practiced unhealthy things such as bleeding themselves to achieve the very pallor to their skin. We know as women just how unhealthy we allow the practices to get. Between corsets and shoes that just reconfigured the body, to the white lead to give a pale pallor or bleeding. It's a bit extreme. Now Spanish prostitutes wore pink, so I guess pale wasn't so good for them. 13th century affluent women wore pink lipstick to prove they could afford synthetic makeup. Then during the Italian Renaissance, lead paint was used to lighten the face, which obviously was very damaging. Agua Tofana was a popular face powder made from arsenic, and Signora Tofana instructed her rich clientele to apply makeup only when their husbands were around. And then later, apparently, a lot of these women died because using that powder. Makeup was viewed as a health threat in the Elizabethan period. Women did wear egg whites on their faces for like a glazed look. I would think that would also give you kind of that cracked look once it dried. When Charles II reigned, heavy makeup became popular to contradict the pallor from being inside due to a lot of illness and epidemics that were going on. Obviously, if you're not out in the sun, you're going to get really, really pale. Been there. Then red rouge and lipstick were used to give the impression of healthy, fun-loving spirit in the 18th century. People in other countries became repulsed by excessive makeup and claimed the painted French had something to hide. We all have something to hide. Blemishes, dark spots. In the early 18th century, rouge became very important and used by people. Eyebrows blackened and hair was dyed to prevent a low hairline. A forehead bandage dipped in vinegar in which cat's dung had been steeped into it was worn. Let that resonate for just a minute. Steeped in vinegar and cat dung. Yeah. The things we do for beauty. Like disgusting, dangerous things. Those living in the country had makeup recipes using herbs, flowers, fats, brandy, vegetables, spring water, and crushed strawberries. During this time, white skin signified a life of leisure, while tan skin indicated a life of outdoor labor. To maintain a pale pallor, women wore bonnets, they carried parasols, and covered all visible parts of their bodies with whiteners and blemish removers. Sadly, quite a few of those remedies were lethal too. The most dangerous ingredients of the time were white lead and mercury. Not only did it ruin the skin, but it caused hair loss, stomach problems, the shakes, and even death. Even though the dangers were known, by the death of courtesan Kitty Fisher, most women continued using dangerous whiteners. And using whiteners is still very popular in a lot of Asian culture. The whole very pale pallor is still very appealing. And, it's just amazing how different cultures have different things of what they find to be beautiful. In Hawaii and some Spanish cultures, if you're married and you're really fat, you're beautiful because your husband takes care of you. It's just amazing. And why I'm not living in those cultures is beyond me, because I'm here in the land of you need to be like stick thin. In the 1800s, women used belladonna to make their eyes more luminous, and they were aware of how poisonous belladonna was, because a lot of women off their husbands that way. Not that, I watch Snapped or Wives with Knives or Dangerous Women, gotta keep the husband on his toes. Sometimes I'll fall asleep to it. He goes to sleep before me, and sometimes I'll fall asleep to it, and he'll wake up, and it'll be like, this woman snapped and killed her husband, shaving her fingernails into his food by poisoning him or something like that. And he's like, are you trying to tell me something? Many cosmetics were made by local pharmacies in the United States and apothecaries in England. Common ingredients were mercury and nitric acid. Hair dye was made from coal tar, which is now legal in America. And men wore makeup until the 1850s, when George IV sport a spent a fortune on cold cream powders, pastes, and scents. A lot of men looked upon men with ridged cheeks as dandies, which was just an early European way of saying effeminate. Some beauty tip recipes used in the 1800s And for this, I'm just going to read it. To remove freckles, bruise and squeeze the juice out of a chickweed. Add 3 times its quantity of soft water. Then bathe the skin for 5 to 10 minutes, morning and evening. A common wash for the complexion was 1 teaspoon of flour of sulfur and a wine glass of glycerin and a wine glass of rose water. Rub on face every night before bed. Then, to keep the hair from graying, 4 ounces of hulls of butternuts infused with a quart of water, to which half an ounce of copperas was added, applied with a brush every 2 to 3 days. And wrinkle removal. Melt 1 ounce of white wax. Add 2 ounces of lily bulb juice, 2 ounces of honey, 2 drams of rose water, and a drop or 2 of ottar of roses, and use twice a day. I would think that if that formula truly worked, it'd be on the shelves and none of us would have wrinkles. Victorians abhorred makeup, and they associated the use with prostitutes and actresses, which many considered them one and the same. A lot of Victorians were Puritan, and some of their beliefs, right up there with, like the Salem witch trials, believing that somebody was a witch and could enchant someone. Any visible hint of tampering with one's natural color would be looked upon with disdain. At that time, a respectable woman would use home-prepared face masks, most of which were based on foods such as oatmeal and honey and egg yolk, which is things we commonly see in the masks that we buy. For cleansing, rose water or scented vinegars were used, which again, we're seeing a lot with rose water. So, as a beauty regimen, a woman would pluck her eyebrows, massage castor oil into her eyelashes, which now massaging like things like argan oil or olive oil or coconut oil into the lashes is supposed to help them. They used rice powder to dust the nose and would buff their nails to a really high shine. Lipstick was not used, but a clear pomade would be applied to add sheen. However, some of these products contained a dye to discreetly enhance natural lip color for a healthy look. Red beet juice would be rubbed into the cheeks, or cheeks would be pinched, okay? Because when you kind of pinch, you're bringing up the natural blood to the capillaries, okay? That wasn't exactly a great thing to do either, because then what you end up with is a lot of busted capillaries. So you get the little red spider lines. Just keep that in mind. Oh, and you never pinched your cheeks in front of people. You always did that discreetly so that you had that glow, and it was like a natural glow. For bright eyes, I read this to my husband because I was like, oh, and he's like, what? And I'm like, I'll tell you in a minute. And then I told him, and he was like, what? For bright eyes, a drop of lemon juice in each eye would do the trick. Let's think about that for a second. Have you ever gotten a small, little tiny paper cut? Doesn't hurt, doesn't bother you. Cut a lemon or a tomato. You will find out just how much that little cut will bother you. So let's think. Put a drop of lemon juice in each eye. Women did this on purpose. When makeup began to resurface, full makeup was still seen as sinful, although natural tones were accepted to give a healthy pink cheek look. The real revolution actually began during the 1910s. By then, women made their own form of mascara by adding hot beads of wax to the tips of their eyelashes. Some women would use petroleum jelly for this purpose. The first mascara formulated was named after Mabel. See where I'm going there? The sister of its creator. I believe that's T.L. Williams, who utilized this method. The mascara is known today as Maybelline. In 1914, Max Factor introduced his pancake makeup. Don't know, if any of you really know who Max Factor was, but his name being associated with makeup would be much like Marc Jacobs or Pat McGrath, things like that, where it was just synonymous. You say the name, boom, you knew. A lot of the silent film stars, and then when they started getting into audio, wanted Max Factor to do their makeup. Now, Vogue featured Turkish women using henna to outline their eyes. And then the movie industry immediately took interest in the technique and made the eye, because it made the eyes look larger. Depending on how you're doing it. Because if you're doing it all interior, you're closing the eye up. But if you're doing it on the exterior of the eye, it's going to pop it open a little. Unless you're older. When you're older, you want to use lighter colors on that lid because generally you got hooded lids and you just want to make it appear a little youthful. And the word vamp became associated with these women that wore the makeup like that. Of course, short for vampire. Because we're always getting the bad connotation. Because everything we do is evil. During this decade, the first pressed powders were introduced, which included a mirror and a puff for touch-ups. Pressed powder blush soon followed, and the lipstick metal case invented by Maurice Levy became popular. And I remember when I was like 16, I swiped a lipstick from my mom and it had a metal case. Best red lipstick I ever wore. It was the greatest. I don't even know what brand it was. I just remember it was a silver, I can't talk today. Silver metal case. And during this time, lipstick was sometimes tattooed onto the lips by George Burchett, who was known as the beauty doctor. This method didn't always work, and you can imagine terrible consequences of that. I just don't think it's worth tattooing makeup. I'm not opposed, obviously, to tattoos, but not on my face. Because I just think that would be way too painful. The earliest version of an acid peel was utilized at around this time, which was a combination of acid and electric currents applied to the skin. Also, a needle would be used to insert paraffin to the eye area and cheeks. This too was not always successful. Nivea cream made its appearance in Germany, and I thought that was kind of neat because Nivea is still around. And companies, in order to compete, began creating creams consisting of Vaseline mixed with fragrance. To help with sagging jowls and double chins, women would purchase weird-looking contraptions, chin straps. Okay? Obviously, that didn't work either. The Victorian look remained in fashion until mass makeup marketing came about during the 1920s. The newly emancipated woman of America began to display her independence by free use of red lipstick was the biggest thing, and like really dark kohl around the eyes. And the red lipstick was often scented with cherry. By the late 20s, visible makeup was considered a must by rural women, but was still frowned upon by the country girls. During this decade, lip gloss was introduced by Max Factor. New shades of red lipstick developed, although they were soap-based and very drying. The first eyelash curler came on the scene called the Curl Lash. Even though it was expensive and difficult to use, it was still very popular. And not as easy to use as the ones we have today. Mascara in cake and cream form was extremely vogue. From the 1930s to 50s, various movie stars proved to be models for the current trends, such as Audrey Hepburn having the deep outline cat eyes. The 60s, hippies became more liberated with makeup, such as white lips, Egyptian lined eyes, painted images on their face, like you'd see a lot that would have like a peace sign or no war, just anything current to the times they would just write on a cheek. In the 70s, you still, and into the 80s, you still had heavily lined eyes. And in the 80s, you had wild colors. Anything was gone, to go. And the sharp lines, it was all about having the lines, whereas today it's all about blending. Then it was all sharp lines. Today's trend has reverted back to a more natural look while blending styles of the past. Today we have so many choices of cosmetics and colors for younger looks. The options available are as simple as hydrators and rejuvenators and chemical peels, Botox, collagen injections, and the facelift. To me, and I'm going to have to splice this together because at some point it's going to split. I was trying to hurry and get through it so it didn't. The most important thing to keep in mind with cosmetics, they're an expression of who you are. The windows are the eye to the soul. And to me, I think makeup should be fun. It should be your art. Where else do you get the opportunity to be a phoenix? Do a look one day, burn it to the ground, and the next day, fresh canvas and a different look. So, I don't think there should be rules to makeup. Do you? As long as you feel good, no one else matters. Be bold. Be fierce. Be a phoenix. Okay? You could be punk one day, girl next door the next. It's up to you. Fresh canvas every day, or it should be. So, with that, goodbye, my beauties. Be a phoenix.